The root cause of urban decay or lack of attention to urban development, of course, is political relevance or the lack of it. The fact that less than 15% of our constituencies have a majority urban population has a great deal to do with this. But there's more to it than that. There is also the fact that urban voter turnout is much lower, particularly middle-class voter turnout, and even those political parties which position themselves to appeal to the urban voters get disappointed time and again. And the second major reason that I would like to draw is that urban reform is blocked at the state level, not at the central level. Reason for that is very simple. We have inherited a system of several decades where power is shared in greater or lesser degree between the center and the state. But the idea of devolving further, going down to the third tier of government, whether urban local bodies or whether rural elected bodies, has been resisted for 2.5 decades at the state level. And I can experience this. And even though I represent a regional party, it's not about regional or national, it's about state governments being composed of having a majority of MLAs in the state assembly. And the MLAs fight tooth and nail to resist further devolution to either rural or to urban local bodies. I can speak with some immediate direct experience. We've just had urban elections in my constituency. And I'm 2.5 years old in this constituency, this particular one. And I've seen 2.5 years of constant conflict between the local MLA and the local municipal council, the chairperson, both from our own party, by the way. And a disproportionate amount of time goes in turf wars. Just to give you a flavor of how this works, this MLA who's slogged for 2 decades to become an MLA finds it absolutely unbelievable that she's only an observer at the municipal board meeting and that her writ is not law. It has led to complete logjam. And I extrapolate from that, and I find that this is true of MLAs in most parts of my state and in most parts of many other states, where they resist devolution of power. If I were to comment on whether I see any changes, I'm beginning to see some changes, but very few. Again, let me use the example of the current election that I had in the urban body in my constituency. Much more so than 5 years ago when we had the last election. I saw the competitiveness much higher. I saw the effort at winning, the efforts being made by all parties across the spectrum, significantly higher than 5 years ago. Most interestingly, now my party won the election, and we haven't had the chairperson's election yet. Now this is an indirect body, like most urban local bodies. The mayors are not elected directly. For the first time in the history of at least my state and my constituency, we have had to take our elected councillors away so that they don't get poached by the opposition before the crucial election, which is a week away. Now this degree of competitiveness, some might think augurs badly, but I think it augurs well actually. It augurs well in the sense that urban elections have become meaningful, that they're really worth fighting for. But of course, a lot more needs to be done. You know, if we could, at the stroke of a pen, make some changes, the mayors should be directly elected. That would immediately have a change in the balance of power between the state level devolution of budgets and the third tier.
When the urban electorate is close to 50% of the total electorate, you would expect rural pressure, urban pressure to rise anyway for response, political response. Because if you think of political influence as economic clout multiplied by numbers, if you work with that little formula, then by the time the city is 40% of India, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on the politicians to respond. The question is, what do you do before that?
In terms of making it conditional, some things are being tried. For example, in JNNURM, the funds are conditional to laws being changed at the state level to empower, to give more power to the local bodies. Now, unfortunately, as you might have heard, a lot of the JNNURM funds couldn't be disbursed because the vast majority of the states could not or did not implement the vast majority of the 23 reforms. On average, only 5 or 6 of the 23 required reforms happened. So carrot alone doesn't work, some kind of stick is required. But let me sort of throw out a tantalizing thought. This thing about the equation that you spelled out, I think other people are recognizing it.